My name is Dr. Brad Brown. I own Strive Direct Health here in Erie, Colorado. That's our main location. We just opened a second location in Westminster and Broomfield, right on the line. I don't really know where it falls. And we have been open for a little over 2 years. I started this direct primary care while in residency. And we pretty much are a full scope primary care office, myself and one other doc. And it's a ton of fun. We see anything from womb to tomb, as they say, and it's changing the lives of each patient individually. So I was introduced to direct primary care in medical school. I have zero close or extended family members in medicine at all. So I went into medical school as a clean slate. I didn't really know what type of doctor I wanted to be, what specialty. And I went to all the meetings, all the different groups, all the different focus groups, everyone about the different specialties. I had in my eye a few different ones. Went to a primary care family medicine meeting, really connected with the speaker. So I figured primary care is probably where I'm going to end up, just because it's kind of what fits my vibe a little bit better than the other ones. And then a couple months later, I met a family doc who recently opened his own direct primary care. This is in the greater Phoenix area. We're on a rec league basketball team together, of all things. But we hit it off. I rotated with him for quite a while. He's more so my friend and mentor now. Heard a few of the OGs in the DPC space speak. Watched everything I could on YouTube and read all the books. Started drinking the Kool-Aid pretty deeply. And so early on in medical school, I was probably the back half of medical school. I knew, hey, not only family medicine but direct primary care is where I wanted to end up. I could scratch my entrepreneurial itch and start my own business, but then also practice medicine the way that it was pre-health insurance companies. We'll leave it at that. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun, and basically being a sponge and learning as much as I can from everyone who's years ahead of me. So the journey to open Strive is somewhat of a serendipitous story. I never set out to open or start a DPC clinic during residency. But as I knew that I wanted to do a direct primary care, open my own direct primary care practice going into residency, I didn't want to just start from ground zero the day after graduation, the day after I finished residency. So I started laying the groundwork. I built a landing page website just for fun in my free time. I printed cards, a logo, the name, everything like that. Just the fun stuff that is not clinically important, if you will. Got the LLC, got a business account. Surprisingly easier than everyone thinks, and much less expensive. And then I was post-call after a 24-hour shift, delivering I think 8 or 10 babies one day in our town in Erie, in the greater Denver area. There was some real estate signs up. So I just swung by, in this dissociative fugue state, peeked my head in the window, and the real estate agent was there, and we started talking. He was a former professional athlete. And basically I was like, this is halfway through residency. I'm nowhere, this is not even on my radar right now to get a physical space. But the more we talked, it was too good to be true. It was right as COVID shutdowns happened. And so real estate was kind of in a little bit of a squeeze. I think I just hit it at the right time. And I was trying to give them, I was asking for a ton of things that were just, in my mind, totally ridiculous, because I wanted them to say no. So then I had a polite reason to back out. Again, not the best negotiation tactic, but they kept agreeing to everything I was asking for. Again, probably just because of the pinch of those couple months. And then I said, hey, let's just sign the lease. We built the space. It was a dirt floor. We built it from the ground up just over the next year or so, and then started seeing patients with about 8 months left in residency, which was quite interesting. But we had a lot of patients very understanding. They understood that we were very busy otherwise, and then it would take off. So it kind of just, and I don't know if snowballed is the right term, but there were a bunch of stoplights. There's a bunch of stoplights you have to go through from the idea of opening a practice to when the practice is open. We kind of just kept hitting green lights, and if we hit a red light, it just kind of, we paused and let the timing work itself out. So it was serendipitous, but also a ton of fun to do it during residency. So yeah, we're a little over 2 years from when we officially opened, we put a hard date of March 1st, 2021 is when we opened our doors, even though it was before that or after that. It's hard to say during residency, but that's, for the local chamber and ribbon cutting and everything like that. That's kind of what the records show. So yeah, we'll say a little two plus years open, a year of outside of residency. There's been there's a learning curve, obviously, but there's nothing that you can't learn as a doc. That sounds very, high and mighty, but you just go with the flow as you're seeing patients, but then learning how to run a small business as well. I would say it's everything that I expected. I had really high expectations. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to do it. So my expectations were up here, and I met them and exceeded them. Couldn't have done it. I can't do it without my wife. We hired a second doc, and she loves every second of it as well. Both of us, we do some locums and moonlighting work, and ERs and hospitalists around the area just to stay fresh and for a little adrenaline. But she can be a full-time mom. I can be a full-time dad. My wife can be a full-time mom. So there's the personal side of it where it's very, very gratifying and rewarding. There's the professional side of it where, our clinic has one crinkly exam table paper room. The other rooms are with soft couches and warm, inviting environment. So we can sit. I love sitting and chatting with patients as long as they need, whether that's 5 seconds or an hour or 2 hours, it's very professionally gratifying to dig into what people really need on the primary care level. So it has definitely exceeded my expectations, but for completely different reasons than I thought. I didn't think I would thoroughly, as deeply enjoy connecting with people that much. I've always been a people person, but it's a whole other level in the DPC space. Again, it has been a fun ride. Definitely not a wild ride, but a very fun and rewarding and growth-filled ride these last few years. There's two concerns that are typically brought up when someone is considering starting a DPC practice, whether that's right out of residency or switching their fee-for-service practice or things like that. One is, oh my goodness, you're always on call with your patients 24/7. How can you handle that? And the other one is the financial aspect of how do you break even? How do you pay for things? How do you pay for your own personal bills and as well as your overhead in your clinic? And the first part of that is, the first concern is a short answer in my book, and I had the same concern, and I talked to every single DPC doc I could, and that was typically it is when patients are paying you their own hard-earned money instead of through a third-party payer, then they are very respectful of time and boundaries. Obviously, there are outliers to that. However, in the 2+ years, we've gotten very few after-hours calls that are urgent. One guy gashed his hand open, had to come stitch him up at 8:00 at night. Someone else at 6 a.m, similar things. So that's one piece of it. The other financial concern is very real. Med school loans are not an insignificant amount of money, nor are lifestyle. If you've been in practice 20 years, you're used to a certain income, and starting from scratch could be a little bit of a switch of an income. So that's also a multi-part answer. Starting right out of residency, your break-even point is pretty low. You're used to making resident salary, and so getting to that point in a micro practice is actually not as daunting when you put out the numbers as they seem. And so putting on a simple Excel sheet is pretty straightforward. To get enough patients paying enough per month to get to that point is actually pretty low, a lot lower than you think. And then making enough to, give yourself a raise, because all of us docs, we've delayed gratification through undergrad, med school, residency. It's been all these years, and now all of a sudden we want to buy an island, for crying out loud. But there are many, many different ways to supplement income through ER shifts or urgent cares or telemedicine or taking online surveys for those are kind of making a comeback. Lots of different ways to supplement income, to have that buffer to where you can cover your loan payments as well as cover your practice overhead. and your personal overhead, if you will. One thing that a lot of docs who are switching from a fee-for-service model struggle to understand is if you have a panel of 2,500 patients, right? That's, we'll call that average. Some people have a lot more, some people have a few less. 2,500 patients, if you, over the course of 6 to 12 months, usually it's about 8 to 12% of your patients will follow you. So let's call it 250 patients follow you over the first 6 months. I mean, that's more than enough to cover your salary that you were making at your fee-for-service position. So it's not really starting from scratch. I mean, none of this is easy, but it's much more rewarding, and you're working for your patients, and you're working to change their world. And so it's a lot easier to get up and come to work in the morning. And so the financial aspect is definitely a piece that should not be overlooked, but it's a bright light that's shining right in your eyes. But if you look past that, behind that bright light, it's not complex. It just takes a little bit of work, which no doctor is afraid to do, right? And then once you see that growth trend happening, it's fantastic.